Everything I Know About Love, by Dolly Alderton. Introduction. Imagine this for a moment. You're 25 years old, in a city that feels like it's swallowing you whole. You're alone in New York, a place you'd always dreamed of, but your phone is smashed, your bank account is empty, and your heart feels just as broken. It's 4 a.m, and you've just escaped the apartment of a complete stranger who, moments before, suggested a threesome with his very angry roommate. You're walking through the rain-soaked streets of Soho, with no money for a cab, no way to call a friend, and a profound, sinking feeling that this isn't the adventure you signed up for. You feel lost. Utterly and completely lost. This isn't the opening scene of a thriller. It's a real moment from the life of a young woman who was desperately searching for love, but kept finding chaos instead. That young woman is Dolly Alderton, and her story, captured in the brilliant, hilarious, and heart-wrenching memoir, Everything I Know About Love, has become a modern-day classic. This isn't just a book, it's a field guide to surviving your 20s. It has sold millions of copies and has been a lifeline for an entire generation trying to figure out what love, friendship, and life are all about. Dolly Alderton is a celebrated journalist and author, known for her sharp wit and her uncanny ability to articulate the messy, beautiful, and often ridiculous experience of growing up. In this book, she pulls back the curtain on her own life with breathtaking honesty. She invites us into her teenage bedroom where she fell in love with boys over dial-up internet, to the sticky floors of university parties, and into the home she built with the women who would become her true north. Today, we are going to walk through the most powerful lessons from her journey. We're going to uncover why our frantic search for romantic love can sometimes lead us away from ourselves, and how the most profound love of all might be hiding in plain sight. By the end of our time together, you will understand the difference between intensity and intimacy, and you'll see why the love you have for your friends might just be the greatest love story you'll ever tell. This is a journey from chaos to clarity, from seeking validation to finding it within. Book summary. Our story begins where so many of our own stories do, in the confusing, hopeful, and slightly desperate world of being a teenager. For a young Dolly Alderton, growing up in the beige suburbs of North London, life felt like a waiting room. She was waiting for her real life to begin. And in her mind, that life revolved around one thing: romantic love. As a teenager, Dolly believed that love was the most important and exciting thing in the entire world. It was the ultimate prize. If you didn't have it, you had failed. Her entire understanding of the world was filtered through this lens. She spent her adolescence glued to a computer screen, logged into MSN Messenger. This was her escape. It was a digital portal into a world of human connection, and most importantly, a world of boys. These weren't real boys, not in the tangible sense. They were phantom boys, as she calls them, email addresses and tiny profile pictures passed around by friends of friends. She'd spend hours talking to boys from Bromley or Maidenhead, places that felt as exotic as faraway lands. They would talk about their favorite bands and their exam choices, but mostly, they would perform a carefully curated version of themselves. It was a world of fantasy, where you could invent the perfect connection, the perfect chemistry, without the awkward reality of actually looking someone in the eye. This was Dolly's first lesson, though she didn't know it yet. The gap between the person you imagine and the person who actually stands before you can be a heartbreaking distance. The few times these online romances led to a real-life meeting, they were almost always a gut-wrenching disappointment. One boy she'd spoken to for months, Bezalel, met her at a shopping center. The date lasted 12 minutes. He told her her skirt made her look like a Scottish man. She told him his taste in movies was babyish. He blocked her on MSN later that day. This pattern of building a connection through words and screens, only to be let down by reality, would follow her for years. It taught her to prefer the script she wrote in her head to the unscripted, messy business of real-life connection. As she moved from her teenage years into university at Exeter, the technology changed, but the goal remained the same. MSN Messenger was replaced by Facebook, a treasure trove for finding the next conquest. Life became a blur of drinking, shagging, and fancy dress parties. She and her friends, a tight-knit group of girls including her lifelong best friend Farley, navigated this new world with a kind of reckless bravado. They operated like a gang, fueled by cheap wine and a fierce loyalty to one another. But underneath the fun, the quest continued. Dolly was collecting stories. She was a human metal detector, she says, crawling through life searching for anecdotes, for experiences that would make her feel like she was truly living. This hunger for life, for stories, led her down some wild paths. One night, after a few too many glasses of wine, she found herself in a minicab, convinced she was on a coach to Oxford. After that plan fell through, she ended up calling a friend, Will, who was at university in Leamington Spa, nearly 100 miles away. Fueled by a desperate need for the night not to end, she took a 200-pound taxi ride to join his after-party, arriving at 5 in the morning. This wasn't about the boy, not really. It was about the story. It was about pushing the boundaries of a normal life, about refusing to let the night end. As she sobered up on the motorway, she told herself the anecdotal mileage would be worth it. But her friend Sophie's reaction the next day offered a different perspective. "I'm not annoyed with you," Sophie told her. "I'm worried about you." This was the central tension of Dolly's early 20s. She was chasing a feeling, a romantic ideal of a wild and free life, but it was leaving her feeling empty, disconnected, and often in a state of deep anxiety. Then came her first proper boyfriend, Harry. It was a relationship built more on convenience than compatibility. He was a conservative lacrosse player who hated excessive displays of emotion. She was a loud, dramatic, creative spirit. She thought he was a square. He thought she was a disaster. They were utterly wrong for each other, but for a young woman who believed a boyfriend was a necessary life credential, it was enough. The relationship ended just after university, with a phone call. He told her he didn't love her anymore. Then, the killer blow. He told her he didn't fancy her anymore. The heartbreak was devastating, but it triggered something else entirely. For the first time in her life, Dolly couldn't eat. Her appetite, which she called her most resplendent asset, simply vanished. And as the weight started to fall off, something inside her clicked. In the chaos of her heartbreak, she found a simple formula she could control: stop eating, lose weight. The compliments started pouring in. "You look great," people said, over and over. Every compliment fed her like a meal. She had equated love with thinness, and now, society was rewarding her for her self-inflicted torture. She lost 3 stone in 3 months. Her hair grew thin, she was constantly freezing, and her health was plummeting. But on the outside, her stocks were up. This was a profound and painful lesson. The world often rewards us for the very things that are destroying us. She had achieved the desirable female form, but she had never been more insecure. She had been more body-confident as a size 14 than she was now, 3 stone lighter. It was in this fragile, heartbroken state that she met Leo. He was a tall, lean PhD student with dark, floppy hair and a gentle soul. For the first time, Dolly felt something real. This wasn't a fantasy built over a screen. This was a deep, powerful connection. She didn't fall in love, she said. Love fell on me. Like a ton of bricks from a great height. Leo saw past the carefully constructed exterior. He noticed she never ate. "I can't fall in love with you if you can't talk to me," he told her gently. And because she would have done anything to keep this man in her life, she started the slow, painful process of recovery. She started eating again. She went to therapy. She fell back in love with food, with cooking, and with life. Leo liberated her from her obsession with perfection. With him, she felt free to be her messy, imperfect self. But the relationship didn't last. They had met as students, and as they grew into adults with careers and responsibilities, they grew in different directions. The breakup was amicable, but it left Dolly once again feeling adrift. This is when she entered what you might call her existential crisis phase. The phase her friend Hannah had so perfectly described years earlier as the dread of life being nothing more than fucking. Tottenham Court wrote in Ordering Shit Off Amazon, "It's the moment you realize you're a grown-up, and it's not what you thought it would be. You're not who you thought you'd be." The parties and the drinking, the things she used to prop herself up, no longer worked. They just left her feeling more empty. This feeling culminated in that fateful trip to New York. She went for a friend's wedding, secretly hoping for a holiday romance, a fresh start, maybe even a new life. Instead, she found herself more alone than ever. After being rejected by her wedding fling and the disastrous encounter with the Frenchman, she was at rock bottom. It was in this moment of utter despair that she connected with a man named Adam on Tinder. He was a kind, earnest, all-American guy who simply offered to be her friend. When they met, she found herself opening up in a way she never had before. She told this stranger everything. About her heartbreak, her eating disorder, her fear of intimacy, her anxiety, the grief she felt for her friend's sister who was battling cancer. "You're so sad," he said, stroking her cheek. And in that moment, she was. But she was also, for the first time, being completely honest about it. The connection was immediate and intense. He told her he loved her after just 6 hours. He begged her to stay in New York, to start a new life with him, even offering to marry her so she could get a visa. It was the ultimate romantic fantasy. The perfect escape. But in that moment, Dolly had a breakthrough. She looked at this kind man offering her a brand new life and realized the problem wasn't the city. It wasn't her job, or her flat, or her lack of a boyfriend. "I'm the problem," she told him. "I'm the thing that needs changing." She flew home. And she began the real work. The work of building a life not as an escape from herself, but as an expression of herself. Throughout this entire tumultuous journey, there was one constant, one unwavering source of love in Dolly's life, her friendship with Farley. Theirs is the true love story of the book. They met at school when they were 11 and became family. They were each other's plus ones, sidekicks, and lighthouses in the storm. "I only make sense with her there," Dolly writes. "My mess only takes a proper shape with that familiar and favorite piece of my life standing next to me." So when Farley fell in love with a man named Scott, a man Dolly had inadvertently set her up with, it sent Dolly into a spiral. It wasn't just jealousy. It was a deep, primal fear of being left behind. She felt like Scott had robbed her of their story, the future she had imagined for them, filled with road trips and shared flats and a lifetime of being each other's number one. "Nothing will change," Farley promised her when she announced she was moving in with him. But Dolly knew it was a lie. Everything would change. This is a truth that resonates so deeply. When a friend enters a serious relationship, the dynamic shifts. The priority list changes, and the gaps between seeing each other grow wider. The love is still there, Dolly explains, but the familiarity isn't. You're no longer living life together. You're meeting up to report on your separate lives. Dolly's journey to accepting Farley and Scott's relationship was long and painful. But it was a crisis that ultimately solidified their bond in a more mature way. When Farley's younger sister, Florence, was diagnosed with leukemia, the pettiness of Dolly's jealousy melted away. She saw Scott's steadfast love and support for Farley and her family, and she finally understood. She and Scott weren't rivals. They were two people who loved the same person, and in that, they became family. The story reaches its emotional peak years later. Just 8 weeks before their wedding, Farley calls Dolly in the early morning. "It's Scott," she says, her voice breaking. "I think we're breaking up." In that moment, everything Dolly had once wished for came true. And she felt nothing but wrenching sadness for her friend. The wedding was called off. Farley was shattered. Dolly and their friends rallied around her, creating a circle of support. They took her on holiday to Sardinia during what would have been her wedding week. On the day she was supposed to get married, they sat by a pool, drinking Prosecco. Farley was quiet, lost in thoughts of what could have been. And Dolly said something profound. "You know," she told her, "that life isn't happening elsewhere. It doesn't exist in another realm. Your life is here, now." It was a lesson Dolly was finally learning for herself. You can't live in the fantasy. You can't mourn a future that was never real. You have to live in the here and now. After the chaos with David, the guru who disappeared in the middle of the night, and the disastrous Christmas special one-night stand, Dolly finally had enough. She was tired of the performance, the chase, the constant need for male validation. She realized that for her entire adult life, she had never truly been single. There was always a boy she was texting, a man she was trying to impress, a crush she was fantasizing about. She decided to take a real break. She deleted the dating apps. She stopped replying to late-night texts from ex-boyfriends. She stopped scanning every room for a potential partner. And in that space, in that quiet, something incredible happened. She went on a solo trip to the Orkney Islands in Scotland. One night, walking under a vast, starry sky, an idea crept over her. I don't need a man to write a song about me. I don't need a guru to tell me who I am. I don't need to change my shape to be worthy of love. I don't need any words or looks or comments from a man to believe I'm visible. I am enough. The words echoed through her. I am whole and complete. I will never run out. This was the homecoming. It wasn't about finding a man or building a home with someone else. It was about realizing that she was already home. The love she had been searching for everywhere else was inside her all along. It was in her friendships, in her work, in her quiet moments alone. Love was the note from Farley left on her pillow. It was the recipes from her mom tucked into cookbooks. It was the laughter she shared with her friends. It had been there all along. Nearly everything she knew about love, she realized, she had learned from her long-term friendships with women. She knew what it was to love someone's flaws, to weather a crisis together, to be a lighthouse for each other. That quiet, reassuring, pottering, harmonious hum of a thing. That was love. And she had it in abundance. Commentary. Dolly Alderton's Everything I Know About Love is more than just a memoir, it's a mirror. As you read it, or as you listen to her stories, you can't help but see reflections of your own life, your own friendships, your own heartbreaks, and your own clumsy, beautiful journey toward figuring things out. What makes this book so powerful is its radical honesty. Dolly doesn't present herself as a guru with all the answers. Instead, she invites us into her mess, and in doing so, she makes us feel less alone in our own. There are two lessons in particular that I believe are the beating heart of this book, and they are lessons that will serve you well for the rest of your life. The first is the profound, earth-shattering importance of friendship. In our culture, we are so often taught that romantic love is the pinnacle, the ultimate goal. Friendships are seen as the lovely, supportive network that holds us up until we find the one. But Dolly turns this idea on its head. She argues, through the beautiful tapestry of her life, that the love we share with our friends is not a consolation prize. It is a defining, life-sustaining force. It is the love that is there before, during, and after our romantic relationships come and go. It's the love that shows up with a pint of ice cream after a breakup, the love that answers the phone at 3 a.m., the love that holds your hand at a funeral. Learning to cherish and prioritize these relationships, to see them as the great love stories they are, is one of the most important things you can ever do. The second core lesson is the journey to self-love, the realization that I am enough. This isn't a cheesy affirmation. It's a fundamental shift in how you see yourself in the world. For years, Dolly looked for her reflection in the eyes of men. Her worth was tied to their attention, their validation. Her journey is about learning to be her own mirror. It's about understanding that your value doesn't fluctuate based on whether you're single or in a relationship. It's about building a life that feels so full and rich on its own that a partner becomes a wonderful addition, not a desperate necessity. It's about coming home to yourself. So, how can you start applying these ideas to your own life, right now? Here are a few simple thoughts. First, take a moment to honor a great friendship in your life. Think of your Farley. That person who has seen you at your best and your worst. Send them a message right now, not for any particular reason, but just to tell them what they mean to you. Nurture that love. It is one of the most precious things you will ever have. Second, practice being with yourself. We live in a world of constant distraction, a world that encourages us to run from our own thoughts and feelings. Try carving out a small amount of time to just be. Go for a walk without headphones. Sit in a park without your phone. Get to know the person you are when no one else is around. Learn to enjoy your own company. It is a skill that will bring you a lifetime of peace. And finally, question one rule about love that you've always believed. Maybe it's the idea that you have to play hard to get, or that you're not complete without a partner. Ask yourself, is this rule serving me? Is it making me happier? Or is it just a script I've been handed? The journey of love is about writing your own story, not following someone else's. That was the book summary of Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. We've explored the main path of her journey today, but I have to be honest with you, a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. It can show you the major cities and the winding roads, but it can never replace the feeling of actually walking those streets yourself. The real magic of this book happens in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story makes you laugh out loud, or a single sentence resonates so deeply it feels like it was written just for you. This summary is your map, designed to help you decide if this is a journey you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has struck a chord, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning lessons, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see love, friendship, and most importantly, yourself. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you something to think about, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing and learning together.